Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Gavin Hood's new biographical drama, Official Secrets. The film tells the true story of Katharine Gun, a British intelligence specialist who leaked information to the press about an illegal NSA spy operation designed to collect compromising information on UN Security Council members and blackmail them into sanctioning the 2003 invasion of Iraq. In addition to Official Secrets, Mr. Hood's credits include the feature films A Reasonable Man, Tsotsi, Rendition, X-Men Origins Wolverine, Ender's Game, and Eye in the Sky, the movie for television Tough Trade, and the pilot and episodes of Breakout Kings. Following a recent screening of the film at the Harmony Gold Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Hood spoke with director Phillip Noyce about filming Official Secrets. During their conversation, he discusses how he told the story of a different kind of whistleblower, the importance of directing bit parts to be the best they can be, and his belief that a restrained approach was the best way to tell the story.
Okay, Gavin, how are you?
Hi, Phil. Very well. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Philip, for being here.
So let me see. We met at a screening of Tsotsi.
Yes, we did.
About a year before it came out.
That's right. You were coming to shoot a film in South Africa. Looking for cast, as I recall. In fact, you cast one of my actors, my leading actress.
Yes, and then I ran to the phone straight after the screening of this DVD copy of your first cut, and rang my agent here and said, "You've got to take this guy on."
That's exactly what happened.
He's going right to the top.
Same agent. Yeah.
A year later, you did.
I did. Thank you, Phil. Now we go back a while. Yeah. No, I went with Steve Rabineau, bless him, who's.
So it's a long journey for Katharine Gun, but a long journey for you to this film too. I mean, you came here to Hollywood and met someone over at New Line who wanted to finance Rendition.
Yeah.
A remarkable film.
Thanks.
And then you accepted the offer to make Wolverine.
Yes.
Having earned your freedom to make Rendition and have it released by Warner Brothers, that was a certain adventure for you in Sydney with.
It was an adventure. I learned a lot. Let's just leave it at that. I learned a lot. Not all of it good.
What did you learn, and how did it lead you to this film? Because it's sort of a Katharine Gun question, in a way.
Yeah, it is, I suppose. Did I get the memo? It's so hard to answer that question without, I had a great time shooting Rendition with New Line. They were really good to me. And I was used, as I know you know, because we both come from indie film, I was used to being the captain of my own ship. And Hugh Jackman approached me for Wolverine. He's a lovely, lovely man. He'd loved Tsotsi. He was really keen to have a strong performance director, and he flattered me into that. And what I wasn't prepared for were two things. One, that as a young director, I was not going to shoot any of the second unit action stuff, and I didn't. Peter McDonald shot all of that stuff, including all the fight scenes on that wretched tower at the end and everything. And that the strike would happen, the WGA strike would happen. So we went down to Australia without a script, and we got script pages the night before, and during the making of that film, the entire concept that I'd signed on to do, which I could talk about if you want me to.
No, don't talk too much about it. We'll get on to this
film. But it changed. Yeah, I'd rather get back. But just for the record, it changed because the title, it'll say it, everything. The title of the film I was going to make was Wolverine. And while we were in pre-production, Hugh came to me one day and said, "Have you noticed the title's changed on IMDb to X-Men Origins Wolverine? What do you think that means?" I'm like, "Mate, you're the producer. What does that mean? You tell me what this means." And what it meant was that they were deciding that they would test various characters, and the whole script went off on this other direction. And we would get pages the night before, literally, and I would sit with Hugh and go, what do we, and then we'd call, and then he'd call Tom, and it was a difficult time. They decided they were going to put all these, so the concept of that film changed.
What did it teach you about the machine?
Well, I was very clearly told at one point, Gavin, if you run next to the machine, these were the exact words, I won't say who said them, it was a studio executive, you need to run beside the machine, because if you get in front of the machine, it will crush you. It's kind of a good note. So there we go, Phil. So what I learned from that was a lot about visual effects in post, and I learned a lot about how not to make a film, meaning here's the most basic, obvious thing, have a script. There's a good idea, before you start.
You also said to me in the canteen at Fox, you said you also learned to trust your cinematographer, which you took to your next film, Ender's Game. Don McAlpine, who shot with me 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
and
I love
a great,
Don.
great
and Don
guy.
saved my sanity. I mean, to be honest, we joke about it. It was, you know how brutal these things can be.
So then you went on to Ender's Game.
Yeah.
And then
I found my way to Eye in the Sky.
Right, so then you became Katharine Gun.
Yes, I found my way home. And it was an interesting thing for those younger directors out here who, at that stage I was under a lot of pressure from agencies and people to stay in the, shall we say, big genre filmmaking world. And there was a film that I was being asked to do, and then Eye in the Sky. And it was a moment when, frankly, I parted company with a certain agent, because I was like, mate, I need
The agent I introduced you to?
No, not Steve.
Okay.
Steve had gone to UTA, and I was working with someone else who's a lovely man, but we had these very difficult conversations. I don't want to turn this into a kvetch. It's just as your career goes, you have this difficult conversation, and frankly, the conversation was, mate, if I do one more like this, I have none of the what brought me into this business sense of myself. That's a Katharine Gun moment. It sounds, whatever it is. But I want to go make this Eye in the Sky movie. Well, there's no budget, and it's never going to work, and, nobody wants to listen to political arguments in a movie, and I don't know who's seen Eye in the Sky, but it was a little movie, and Alan Rickman's last movie.
Great movie.
Thank you, guys. And Helen Mirren was amazing in it. And it was a very, very, very tough shoot to make, because the budget was considerably less. But
you went back to South Africa?
I went back to South Africa. We shot that entire movie in Cape Town. All of the visual effects were done by a local South African company, except for 3 drone shots that I used Digital Domain and my dear friends there, who helped me with those very photoreal drone shots. But I just felt like I was back working in a world that I was able to shoot every frame. There was no push for a second unit director because there was no money. And so I felt a little more in control of my material.
Right.
And
So
that's the same on this little movie was harder. This movie
Right,
was...
so you're thinking about what to do next. You've made 2 studio pictures in a row. I guess Ender's Game is a studio picture. It was made independently, but it was sold on to a studio. Then you've had the freedom that you had on Sotsi. You went back to South Africa to make the next film, Eye in the Sky, a brilliant film about the future of warfare, as it will be fought and is being increasingly fought.
I mean, we're in that zone now.
And you are way ahead of the curve there in terms of your use of miniature drones, those little insect drones and so on. That
all of which were being developed
we
right
knew
here
about.
in LA, actually. And that bird that you see in the film was actually made. There was a real one, prototype made here.
So then you're thinking what to do next, and one of your producers, I understand, told you the story of Katharine.
Yeah, so Jed Doherty, who had produced Eye in the Sky, who is a lovely man and great to be back in a world where there's no conflict and we're all making the same movie. And Jed called me up because we'd enjoyed working together, and he said, hey, Gavin, have you ever heard of Katharine Gun? And, it's that moment where you think you should have because why is he asking? And I go, no, should I? He said, just Google Katharine Gun, call me back. So I Googled Katharine Gun, called him back 2 hours later, said, why have I not heard the story? He said, are you interested? Long story short, I went to London, I met with Katharine. I spent 5 days initially with her, working with her every day for 5 hours a day. I said, start at the beginning, tell me your story. I did the same with Martin Bright, the same with the other journalists who he introduced me to, and then ultimately with Ben Emerson, the lawyer that Ray Fiennes plays. That was an intimidating and fascinating experience, and I can talk more about that if you like, but that's where that story came from.
Well, there's obviously a journey there, a journey for you as about your own creative freedom.
Yeah.
But also I was interested in watching the film, which I've seen 2 or 3 times now, actually
Thanks, Phil. Wow.
third time today, that it's the most unadorned of your movies, in as much as it's sober. Florian Hofmeister, of course, came to prominence with that wonderful use of filters for Great Expectations,
Yes,
the TV series that he made, beautifully shot. But in this film, he doesn't seem to be using filters. It's just light. Yeah. There's not much movement of camera. It's really about the acting and the story. It's almost like you're trying to develop a style that is in absolute lockstep with the honesty, the simplicity of the issue.
Well,
and
thank you
character.
for putting it that way. No, thank you, Phil. You should. I'm going to steal a lot of that. But yes, that's very kind of you, because you could argue that it is rather basically done. But it was exactly that. Firstly, there wasn't much money. There was less money than we had on Eye in the Sky. My shooting schedule was really tight, 36 days, right? I've got...
that's a lot nowadays.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's true, actually. So I felt bad as I said it. But I had Rafe Fiennes, for example, for 6 days. And we had to shoot everything with him in those 6 days, courtroom, in the law offices, and the stuff at the beach and the house. So you can't be too tricksy. But to your point... what I realized was that this was about a very pure, frankly, quite ordinary person. As a whistleblower, she's not really larger than life. She's not, some of our whistleblowers, you feel like they're so beyond us. If it's Julian Assange, Julian Assange is a sort of institution to himself. Whatever you think of him, he ain't ordinary. Whatever you think of Edward Snowden, he ain't ordinary. For me, what's so beautiful about the Katharine story is it could be you. It could be me. It could be any of us at work, doing our job, not particularly important in our job, something lands on our desk and we go, hold on, my company, my studio, my Enron, my Wall Street firm is really doing something that doesn't feel right. This one thing, Katharine only leaked one memo. This one thing was a bridge too far to her. And so for me it was, wait a minute, it's a very quiet hero. There's no fanfare. The damn script is really hard to structure because she doesn't make a big speech at the end. So for a long time, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. And there was one studio I was working with initially that got quite frustrated at one point. We ended up parting company. Jed found money elsewhere. And the funny story was there was a meeting, Jed and I, with an executive who said, look, guys, we need more running down alleys. Can't someone throw a friggin' brick through her window? And you'll love this, when does she don her cape? That was literally the line. Like, give her the speech in the courtroom. Let her be and so this whole thing was like, well, these people are still very much alive. They had rejected an earlier version that had tried to follow these routes. And the only way I'm keeping these folks on board, Katharine, Martin, the other 2 journalists, and Ben Emerson in particular, is if I get their approval that I have followed the material facts of their story, or they're going to trash the film, in which case there is no marketing of this film. So that was an interesting challenge, because I've never written a script with people who are still alive.
Right.
Yeah.
So through all these movies that you've made since, I'll see you've used, except for Don McAlpine, the same cinematographer twice. You've changed your cinematographer, but you've kept 3 people with you.
Yes.
Megan Gale, of course, the brilliant editor from Johannesburg, and your 2 composers.
One of whom is here. Let's just give him a say hello. Where's Mark Killian? There he is.
There he is, Mark.
There he is. Mark Killian's done 4 films with me. Sorry, I have to give him a shout. Yeah, love Mark.
It's interesting because in this film, it's almost as if the 2 composers were asked to write another script as well. Of course, I always think that the music is the invisible script. But whereas the camera is somber and the lighting is unadorned and your directorial style is straightforward in the way it tells the story, totally in lockstep with the subject and the character. But those 2 gentlemen are in a way, playing through a whole other mosaic.
Yeah, I think maybe, and it's a very good observation. I mean, we started off with quite a sparse score, and we had a whole different concept for the score that was very sparse. And then you reach a point where, have I been too sparse? Am I verging on too documentarian approach? And so we elaborated on our score with much discussion at certain points. But you're very astute, Mr. Noyce. This is, he zones in. Now, we haven't had this conversation. He sure hones in. But it was, for me, Philip, you're very observant about it. I mean, the style that we took to the shooting, one thinks there is a restrained style. But here's what our strength was in that film. Keira Knightley's performance, Ralph Fiennes' performance, Matt Smith's performance. My feeling was, as I was working in the rehearsals, what I need to do as I work with Keira is make sure that my audience gets to see into those eyes, unadorned. The more I put tricksy lighting in here, the more I detract from just... So now I've got a 75mm lens. I went, Florian, we were in on the 50. I said, let's just back off. I want to isolate her and look, and eyeline really tight to lens, playing literally to almost into lens at times, so I can just watch the cogs turning in this very nuanced and subtle performance. You know, those moments before she decides to leak the memo, the moment before she goes to confess, there's like a 12-second tiny track on the 75mm lens, and you just let Keira go through that beat, because that's what the story was about. The story wasn't about how clever am I, so in a way, you're making a directorial choice. It's not like you're not there. You're saying our style is to be long-lensed on that face and let the actor drag this audience in. The more I try to be cool angles, and the more it's like draw attention to myself. So then you get into the end, you go, well, do I need to push the emotion a little more here musically? Or and Mark would say to me, the best thing about this composer is he says, mate, you don't need music here. You don't need me now. If I put music here, we had this conversation, music often tends to it doesn't have enough nuance, no offense, but you're in the minor key, it's generating a certain feeling. But what's going on in Katharine is multiple things. So sometimes Mark would say, Gav, let's just get the music. We don't need to be here. Anyway, you get the point.
And Megan, tell us about your relationship with her.
Megan Gill and I have worked together. Megs and I have done almost every film. And I just love working with Megan. I mean, I don't know if it's because it's a woman in the room with a man.
You bring her out here, or she
came
take
here.
the film to Joburg?
No, we did the post here, and she came and stayed here. She's done before, and on Eye in the Sky, we edited some there, and then we came back here. So I'm very lucky that Megs is willing to pop over, and she loves being here, but she still loves South Africa, so she goes back and forth. But she's also a wonderful sounding board, because, for example, there's when the intelligence investigator comes to see Keira at her home and basically is telling her that you can't speak to a lawyer, he has quite a long speech, and you're naturally wanting to cut between the two, and Megan will say, let's just stay on Keira. Again, the cogs are turning, it's one lens, and then I think maybe I should have done a little more of a track in, but we're just sitting on her through this guy's long speech as she goes through the disbelief and the shock, and then begins to harden, and then says, basically, fuck you. You tell GCHQ I won't talk to a lawyer if they don't charge me. If they charge me, I'll talk to a lawyer. Tell that to GCHQ. And you let Keira do that work for you.
Well,
and that's an editorial decision.
Come back to Keira in a moment, but the big question I had, given the shot of the real woman at the end, was, why no blonde hair?
Well, again, there's always a story. So we were in rehearsals and wardrobe and costuming, and out come the wigs, and are we going to dye it, and the other wigs, and we're putting them on, and we're trying the glasses, and then is she going to do the nose, because and Keira just said at one point, Gav, everybody's talking about Keira Knightley and the blonde hair, and I just feel like audiences have no idea who Katharine is. And the last thing I want is for the audience to say, I don't like Keira with blonde hair. What do you think of Keira with blonde hair? Or the glasses? Or she said, if I were, Meryl Streep or Helen Mirren playing the Queen, or Meryl Streep playing Maggie Thatcher, I really know, because those people are so well known, that I have to do an amazing impersonation of those people. But what's appealing, and free to disagree with this. There's no right answer here. I'm just telling you what happened with us. She just said, no one knows Katharine. And I so often have to do things in corsets and hairdos. I just want to let my hair down, pull on a pair of jeans the way Katharine did, and experience moment by moment what it might feel like for me, Kira, to be feeling these moments. I don't want to feel I'm trying to impersonate someone. It's making me feel awkward. Well, as a director, you now have an interesting problem, don't you? I mean, you either force the actor to go that way and say, I need your hair dyed, or you say, actually, that's a perfectly valid point. And in every screening we've ever done, I don't think anyone has ever asked us, no offense, Phil, and they may have thought it, because then we were deciding, do we show the real Katharine Gun, who's blonde at the end? And we decided we would. And it goes to my point, I think, about this could happen to any of us. We're not watching some larger-than-life hero who dons a cape at the end and does things more extraordinary. She's an ordinary person who does something extraordinary, but Kira was just going through the beats of, what if I were faced with this? How would I feel? So we worked from the inside out, not the outside in.
So how do you put a film like this together? Is it that you've got to get a Keira Knightley to sign up?
Yeah.
Could you have made it with a lesser-known profile actress?
For less money, yes.
For less money.
Probably. You know,
and
it
did
was hard to
Rafe
find.
come after she joined?
Yes. Rafe came after she joined.
And how did you get her to join?
I don't think it was any more complicated than sending the script to her agent. I think the agent in London was particularly helpful. Because this is a story that's really well known in England. So Kira knows the story and Rafe, and so they have quite strong passions about this because these were their politicians more than anything. So I think we were lucky in the sense that the subject matter was more familiar to them than perhaps it might be in America, and they felt strongly about the story. And then once Kira came on, it was easy, as you know it always is, who's in place to talk to other agents with the actors that you want.
So without giving away any official secrets, does that mean that Kira signed on for a reasonable fee that was less than she might earn on a studio picture?
I have no idea what Kira earns on a studio picture, but I imagine it is more.
Okay. Well, you won't be prosecuted for that answer.
That was a good dodge.
And how did you work with her?
She's extremely professional, totally prepared. I mean, on a film like this, as you know, this is going to sound really trite, but it's quite nice when the actors know their lines. You do, then you can work on the emotion and you can work on the scene. So these British actors are amazingly prepared. I've worked with actors who come on and they haven't really looked at the script, and then they tell you that the line doesn't work, but you realize it's because they haven't actually learned it, so now they're trying to bullshit their way out of it. And I only had one who shall be nameless, and it was not Rafe Fiennes, it was not any of our big leads, who, so sorry, there's a blah, 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 and the whole crew and everyone's going, yeah, it's very funny, isn't it? Jesus, I'm not going to make my day. And the other actors are feeling that too. So all I will say is that, you know, all of our major players were absolutely professional.
So
totally
you
prepared.
are rehearsing, or are you?
I
do
rehearse
you do
like
formal rehearsal, or do you do deep character study?
It's a great question, and I'll try and answer it quickly. So we didn't get much rehearsal time. I got 0 rehearsal time with Rafe Fiennes. He showed up, we got on with the work. But we talked a lot beforehand. And what I learned from
Did he study that guy?
Yes, we
you
set up
provided
meetings
him
with
with
Ben.
video?
They went and met. Everyone, Kira met Katharine. All the actors met their counterparts and spent time with him. So that's good research, right, in terms of the emotional connection.
And they asked them questions.
Lots of questions.
About what they were going through, the psychology of
the psychology
what
of
they
it.
were doing.
And then Rafe went to watch Ben. He couldn't watch Ben himself in court. He went to watch another court case. But he also spoke to the judge, and he spent time with Ben, and Ben talked him through the case and talked him through.
That's how a British court is structured. The audience are at the.
All the funny hairdos.
It's all strange. It seemed like it was around the wrong way, or a puzzle or something.
No, that's how it was. Yeah.
So the jury.
And she really was in a glassed-off cage, as if she would be shot at. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we didn't use the exact courtroom because that's at the Old Bailey. So we used a courtroom in Liverpool that was empty, but. There, this glass wall that was in front of her as if they put up these bulletproof glass things these days, I guess, for some of these trials where gangs might come in. They had one in the Old Bailey where some gang member jumped over the balcony and tried to kill the guy in the witness box. And so the glass box is not a fake. But the rehearsal for me is mostly about going through the script so that on the day, nobody is suggesting a line change. The rehearsal period is we're going to read through this entire script. We're going to read it together. I'll read the other parts. If I can't get the actors in the same room at the same time, which you often can't, I'll read it. Let's read every scene. Ask me any question about the scene now, where it's coming, why, what line. Let's make any changes we're going to do now because on the day there's going to be no time to do it. It means I don't get surprises. It also helps me test the writing before I get on the set, because that's a shitty place to be testing the scene, right? So those rehearsal for me about that. But I have two requests I make of actors. And let's forget the big actors. The things I love are the small roles. Because Mark and I were watching the US Open earlier today before we came over, and we were talking about this game of tennis.
I thought you'd be watching the Test cricket.
No, the tennis. But the tennis, you're only as good as your opponent, and what's exciting for an audience or a crowd is when you've got two equally matched people playing tennis. Well, movies are actually not that different. If I put Keira Knightley, and she's great, in a scene where some actor has 3 lines but they're crap, that's just a bad tennis match, right? So the fun for me is casting all the small parts, and I take half an hour to 45 minutes on small roles where people come in and we read and go again and read and go again. Because I need, for the moment you're looking, and this should be obvious, I suppose, for the moment you're looking at that face that has 2 lines, it's a cliche to say that they're the lead, but you're on them. They drop the ball, now we collectively have to pick the ball up. So I'm very proud of moments where the guard pats her down, and that young actress's performance that's so... The judge is ready, come through. These little moments that allow Keira to be good too, if she was bad. So what I ask of actors, and you don't normally have to tell this to professionals, but often less experienced actors, I need 2 things out of you. Sounds trite. Please know your lines perfectly, but do not work perfectly on how you're going to say them. Know where you are emotionally as you walk into the scene, because you have to enter the scene with what's happened before. This should all be trite, but it isn't to some actors. Know where you are emotionally as you enter the scene. So the first serve in the tennis match comes from a real place, whatever that mood is. But watch the other actor for the tennis game. You've practiced I'm talking about Wolverine. I had this with a certain actor. It wasn't Hugh. It was someone who came to do this work with Hugh who had not acted before. He was a big singer. You'll work it out if you like. Bless his socks. He'd practice his lines the night before, in the mirror, clearly. And no matter what Hugh Jackman did, his response came out the same. And I had to shut the set down and take this person away and say, I'm just going to play a simple game. Hello, how are you? Your lines, I'm fine, thank you. If I say, hello, how are you? That's one stimulus. But if I say, hello, how are you? That's a totally different stimulus. Oh, how interesting. It's amazing how sometimes, like, the most obvious thing you think from actors is not obvious. And so for me, it's about saying, come in the room and be alive to the other performer. Take all the pressure off yourself. Watch Keira. Because a lot of those smaller parts, they're nervous. And I think that my job is to help those parts so that Keira is playing tennis with someone who's in the right place. That was long-winded, sorry.
So...
it's pretty obvious, I know, but...
Having made 2 studio pitches with that were not necessarily the most happy 2 years of your life, and then 2 completely independent films where you owned the film and were totally in control, and made all the decisions from beginning to end. What next? Catherine?
What next, Catherine? Oh, I do love this man. I want to interview you so badly one day, Phil. He just never lets me, He does these. He's done this for me before. Phil, because we've talked about this. I mean, you're always in the fine line between, can I get the film funded? I've had projects that I'm really passionate about that just can't get the money for. Then you get offered stuff. Stuff comes in every week, right? And some of it's great and a lot of it isn't.
Would you step into the possibility of having to fight for your freedom?
I know what I wouldn't do now. I'm not doing something where the script isn't done. I mean, it sounds trite, but I'm not. It's just too much pain. So if I don't feel a strong connection to that material, and the material isn't ready. Either we're going to get it ready, or we're not. We just can't. You can't sign on to something where you don't feel safe with your foundation. I mean, the script is your foundation.
So what are you looking at right now?
So for me, it's very simple. I am writing a couple of things myself. I get scripts sent to me frequently. Eye in the Sky I did not write. It came to me. I worked with Guy for about 3 or 4 months on the script afterwards, but it's his script. There are others where I've co-written. What happened on this one is there was a version, and then the movie fell apart, and it was sent to me. So I'm open to anything that is a great story that you feel you can actually direct well, I suppose. It's not actually fun struggling for money. It's really hard. This was a difficult film to make because, we thought at one point, yay, we're going to go and film in England. We'll be in London. We'll be in all the places where it happened. There's no money to shoot in London. London's too expensive. So we're doubling London in Manchester, Liverpool, and Leeds. So nothing is simple.
But arguably, rendition, Tsotsi,
Eye in the Sky and this
Eye in the Sky and this film
world.
are your films.
Yeah, they're my films.
They're your best films.
Well, thanks, Phil.
And they're all striking because they express your personality and your worldview.
But that's unfortunately what we are when we're best as directors. I think we're best when we express our worldview and our feeling and our history.
And then I noticed
yeah.
that you've also struck out to television in the golden age of television. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I don't have a lot to say about that. I mean, Eye in the Sky has a show being developed based on it, which would be great. I don't know. We're in the process.
But you directed some episodes.
I did some television early on. I did a small show, but I learned a lot. It was a show that ran for a few seasons. I was a director for hire on that. The writers were great. They were in control. You know how television works. It was my learning curve of going, here my job is really to deliver for these writers. It's not my show. Television in that world was the producer-writer was king, and that's great. So I feel now about television that there's 2 television projects that I'm writing myself that allows me to make them more my own. In the television that I did, a show called Breakout Kings, that was really Nick and Matt's show and their writing and their voice. And I hope I did a good job for them as a craftsman executing on a job. And I learned a lot about how television works. But it's their voice. I can't claim that as my voice, right? My voice is, I don't know what my voice is.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Phil.
As I said, the style of directing was totally in step with the subject and the character.
Thanks.
So you've done it again. It's a small
it's a
film,
movie,
but as Jeffrey Wells said in Hollywood Elsewhere after it premiered at Sundance, this is an extraordinary film and has an inbuilt strength in its dignity in the way that it attacks the story.
It's very generous
Thank
of you, Phil. Thank you, mate. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for more great Q&As with directors Lorene Scafaria and Michael Engler. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow cinephiles find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.